The Opium War was the start of China's downfall in the 1800s. Before the war against the British in 1839, China at that time contributed to over a quarter of the world's gross domestic product and controlled an army size of over 800,000 troops. It was the richest country in the world. So how did such a powerful country got defeated by a British force of only 20,000 troops that sailed all the way from their navy base in India? Two simple answers are often given. The first is that the Chinese soldiers were addicted to the opium drug imported by the British, which affected their ability to fight, and the second is the lack of technological advancement in weaponry due to an inward-looking culture. Opium was only a minor factor leading to the defeat of the Chinese. It was not as big a factor as everyone thought. The drug was expensive, hence it was most taken by wealthy merchant, ruling class and court royalty. There was no way a soldier on their salary could afford to consume opium. The opium idea was a simple propaganda way by the Western media to explain the downfall of China and to discredit the Chinese as idle and lazy people. In terms of weaponry technology, China was not that far behind in the 1800s. 40% of the army carried firearms and cannons were deployed to defend fortifications. Though they were not be as effective or as accurate as the British made, but this does not truly explain how a Chinese force of 200,000 could be defeated by a British force of only 20,000. The Chinese force was not amateur, they had just fought a rebellion war a decade before. The technology factor could not be a major contributor to the Chinese military defeat. A leading factor was the way Chinese military command was organized. There were advantages and missed opportunities during the war that were wasted. Commanders are not given flexibility to change battle plan as they see fit during the battlefield for fear of being put to death over tactical or negotiation errors, either major or minor mistakes. Majority of key battles were fought in the Guangdong province, which is 1,200 miles away from Beijing. Commanders require permission from high command to change battle plans, which could take days to receive approval from Beijing. By that time the advantage was lost or the battle was over. Chinese warfare is often rigidity and tactics do not change according to battlefield development, however British commanders were given flexibility to alter in the theater of war. Another main reason, which few historians often tried to explore, was the unwillingness of soldiers to fight and the lack of enthusiasm from local population to defeat the British. At that time, the Qing dynasty ruled over China, but they were not true Chinese, they were from another ethnic minority group from north of China in Manchuria near Korea. The Manchurians attacked and took control of China in the 17th century, and their leader proclaimed himself as emperor of the conquered land. Hence, to the interpretation of local Chinese population, they were conqueror, and many holds discontent against the new Qing dynasty and see them as occupying forces. So, by the First Opium War, the army drafted locals from Guangdong province to fight the British. The emperor did not mobilize his loyal and more experienced imperial troops. The camps were extremely negligent in training and often can't be bothered because the soldiers don't see it was their war and had little or no loyalty to the emperor to defend the land. They were reluctant to fight as they do not see the Qing dynasty as true ethnic Chinese, they see them as a foreign power because of their different culture and tradition. They associate them as occupying power that took over China during the 17th century. Most soldiers ended up running away from the battlefield. Opium was a profitable trade for the locals in Guangdong as well. Whole new towns sprung up for the purpose of the trade network, merchants became extremely rich, and thousands of poor farmers would leave their home to join in the opium trade. In 1800, Guangdong was the richest province and has the second highest population in China. Some sea merchants were even collaborating with the British by providing logistical, food provisions and repair docks for damaged British warships. They don't see why imperial court 1,200 miles away should meddle in their profitable trade and the business affairs that they do not understand or concern them. The Manchurians were warlord-like people and don't often see the value in trading with Western countries as much as the locals from Guangdong. Some corrupted local bureaucrats which benefited from the trade deliberately delayed logistical arms support coming from the north to the frontline troops in hoping the Chinese military would lose as not to disrupt the opium trade. Another key factor was that China was in chaos from rebellions that want to get rid of the Manchurians from power. Hence the emperor had a more urgent matter of civil unrest to attend to than to mobilize their hardcore imperial troops to fight the British. Losing a small insufficient rocky island called Hong Kong was not vital, it was so far away from Beijing that few royal court bureaucrats even know the place existed. There were collaborations between the local Chinese population and the British. The British simply hired mercenaries and local guides to advise them on their geographic disadvantages. Food supplies and accessories were available for the right price to the British. In conclusion, China did not lose just because of superior Western weaponry, although they did minorly contributed to the eventual defeat. Certainly, soldiers being incapacitated due to opium consumption as written in Western history books are not true. The major factor was the local Guangdong population. They don't want a war, as the British helped them to export their products to the rest of the world, and opium made many merchants wealthy in China. Most locals also opposed the Manchurian ruler as well, which they see as outsiders and a non-Chinese ethnic group from the north. Hope you have enjoyed a quick view on how China lost the First Opium War against the British. Please do leave comments below if you agree or even disagree with my views.